Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the CruitCast. I'm Jason Sukanel. That's Cole Patterson. You all should probably know that by now, right, Cole? We've been doing these long enough and regularly enough now. Hopefully everybody knows our not so gorgeous faces. But hey, let's talk about Prime Shrimp before we start talking recruiting. They just introduced a new flavor. It is their New Orleans style barbecue. I was just reading this out loud to you and Blake, our producer, and like my mouth is watering reading about it, man, and salivating. So it's a New Orleans barbecue. It says it's as delicious as New Orleans cuisine gets. Oh, this is where it gets me. Spicy, savory combination with a misleading name. It's not Texas or Kansas City or Carolina barbecue, but real butter spiked with black pepper, citrus, and Worcestershire for a standout dish found on the menu at classic restaurants down in Louisiana. So, man, I'm seriously, my mouth is just salivating.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
I haven't tried it yet. We haven't tried it yet, but we're gonna have to change that soon, man. So,
yeah,
you guys, everybody's heard us say it before. Listen, we're not endorsing it because of our sponsors. We're endorsing it. Yes, that's part of the reason for it. But it's good stuff. It's easy. It's quick. It's easy cleanup. I mean, you can throw it on pasta, on anything, and it's just fantastic. So go to Prime Shrimp. Use that promo code OrangeBloods. Get $20 off your first order. Also, do us a favor and like this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel here. Help us grow this channel. That helps us as well. So, cool. Here's where we're at. Today, we're exactly 2 weeks from the first day of the early signing period, okay? 2 weeks from today. So, weirdly, you'd think there'd be a lot of moving and shaking going on this week, but not a ton. We got some stuff we're going to talk about. What I want to do next week will be the big one because that's when they're having their big recruiting weekend on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. But what I'd like to do today, Cole, is just kind of set the table again as we head down this home stretch. So let's you and I go position by position for Texas. I want to talk about the guys that are still on the table. We'll briefly address, if there's anything to address, the guys that are committed. And then you and I are going to make some predictions about if we think these guys that are still on the table, if they're going to be in or out of this class. Okay, so let's start with quarterback. It's Arch Manning and only Arch Manning, right? Everybody knows the story there. I'll let you kind of take the wheel here, Cole. Anything worth addressing on Arch Manning? And maybe we see him in Austin next weekend with all these other commitments. That's probably something we should probably check on here pretty soon. But anything substantial to talk about with Arch Manning?
Yeah, nothing recruiting wise. I guess it's just him getting acclimated in the spring and making a push and see where he's at in the quarterback battle. But yeah, he's been all in on Texas since the summer, and obviously that's paid dividends for Texas. Not even just for him, but with other commits.
Yeah, it's been kind of refreshing, and not that we ever really expected Arch Manning to waver or anything, right? But there's just been no drama at all. Yeah, no drama at all. It's been nice, and he's visited. I've lost count how many times now, but he's got the means to get here if he wants to. So, I know CJ Baxter's coming in next weekend. A lot of their out-of-state commitments are coming in next weekend. So it would not shock me at all. In fact, I'd go as far as to say I'm almost expecting Arch to show up. We probably, again, we need to check on that and confirm it. But, yeah, if all the committed guys are coming in, it'd be big to get Arch in again. Like you said, then he will enroll at Texas in January. Let's go to running back, Cole. They got 2 commitments, Trey Wisner, CJ Baxter. One took a little dip in the Rivals rankings, and Trey Wisner. CJ Baxter takes a huge jump up to just outside of 5-star status. What was he? Calls he 30-something? What's he?
32 overall. So I guess if he stays there, I think he would be a 5-star.
Yeah,
final update at least.
He'll be at the Under Armour All-American Bowl, and I just got a press release today. He's actually one of the 4 captains for his team in that game. So if he performs well at Under Armour, I think he's a no-brainer, 5-star. He'll get that 5th star. So those are the 2 Texas commitments. That's really about it. No real excitement at running back aside from those guys. You mentioned it last week. You reported CJ will be in Austin next week for an unofficial visit with all those other guys. So that's a big development there because Florida State was still really pushing there. But you don't feel like, and I don't feel like after your report, Cole, you don't feel like there's anything to be worried about there, right?
No, yeah, I actually was talking to him yesterday. He messaged me because, I guess Rivals, when they update their rankings, they only update the national rankings, but not the state and position rankings. So he was wondering if there was a glitch because I think he was like number 32 overall and like 23rd in Florida or something. So he was talking to me about that. And then, I just checked in on him because, the Texas staff was just in Orlando. He said that visit went really well. Still no plans to visit anywhere else. And which we reported last week, I know Florida State was trying to get him back maybe. Florida, Miami were still lurking around, but seems pretty set on Texas, or I should say really set on Texas. Tashard Choice has done a great job there. And interesting enough, Florida State's also, I don't know if they'll flip him, but they're also trying to – they're also in the mix for Trey Wisner, the other commit, which is kind of interesting that, the two programs are in the mix there for both running back commits. But, yeah, I think Baxter's pretty safe in this class. And Wisner, yeah, like I said, he took a dip in the ranking. Still a good player. We'll see what happens there, but – everybody wants to know about Cedric Baxter. Him being a captain, him being at the All-American game could earn him that 5th star for sure. And
I'm
looking to be signing in the early signing period and be early enrolling.
Yeah. 32nd nationally. You're right. He's still 21st in the state of Florida. So
I was wondering what was going on there.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are. That'll get resolved here soon. Trey Wisner, he's told me going back to the summer that he was going to take a summer official visit to Florida State.
Yeah.
I don't think I know he didn't do it in the summer. I don't think he ever took that visit to Florida State. So I got to think he sticks with Texas.
I believe, I could be wrong, I believe Nick Harris said he's still talking to them maybe or something, but we'll check in on that. I'm actually supposed to see Trey this weekend. I did see him on Sunday, didn't get a full-on report or anything, but, I was talking to him casually. He was with Jonte. Wearing some Texas stuff. So Texas should be fine there. But, always interesting that Florida State happens to be the other school involved with both running back commits for whatever reason.
Yeah. And like you said, DeSoto's still alive in the playoffs. So
yeah,
he hadn't really had any chances to take official visits, which probably is a good thing for Texas. Let's move to receiver, Cole. We can go talk about the commitments. And then there's still some guys on the table. But, at receiver commitments, you got Jonte, who you mentioned, Ryan Niblett. I don't think there's anything to be worried about with either one of those guys. Jonte has always talked about the possibility of taking other visits, but he took an Oregon unofficial visit. He's talked about the possibility of taking another official visit. That hasn't happened. Obviously, they're still playing, so he's kind of in the same situation as Trey. I don't know if he could take another visit even if he wanted to. But anything of note with those two guys, Cole?
Yeah, like I said, I just saw Jonte on Sunday. I was at a 7-on-7 tryout in Dallas, the team that he's been playing for. And he was wearing a Texas beanie. He was all, decked out in Texas stuff. So, he's been one of the solid commits. He did take that Oregon visit, but him and Arch have been locked in. He's playing this weekend. He has a chip on his shoulder. He's going up against a big, talented type Guyer secondary. If you've seen him on Twitter, he's been pretty active on that about what's going on there. But as far as his commitment, yeah, he's pretty locked in. Ryan Niblett, he was a big riser. Speaking of rankings, in the top 100 as well. He's pretty locked in with Texas. So 2 really good commitments there.
Yeah, and they're looking to add at least one more. And I kind of wrote them up in my Q&A. I'm going to look at them here, and then we'll talk about like DeAndre Moore, receiver out of California, who's committed to Louisville still. Louisville's going through a coaching transition. Yeah. Even before that, we kind of heard some rumblings that things look pretty good for Texas. There's some moving parts behind the scenes. Louisville's trying to do whatever they can. Let me say it like this: whatever they can to keep them in the fold.
Arch has been pretty active on at least Instagram recruiting DeAndre as well.
Yeah, my prediction, Cole, I'm saying he's in this Texas class at the end of the day. What's your kind of call on that one?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you based on what you've heard as well. It seemed like he was kind of leaning towards Texas in the spring, at least at one point when he was on campus. Texas needs that extra receiver, or another receiver, I should say. Louisville's going through a coaching change. Georgia was the other team in the mix, but they got Anthony Evans to flip from Oklahoma, the receiver out of San Antonio. So it looks like it's, signs are pointing towards Texas there. And like I said, Arch has been active recruiting him. It's kind of hard to turn down Arch Manning.
Yeah, the Georgia thing kind of, for a minute there, it looked like Georgia might be the team to beat, but not really hearing about them as much anymore. Jacoby Lane, these are 3 guys. Well, DeAndre's committed elsewhere too, but 3 other guys that are committed elsewhere. Jacoby Lane, USC commitment. Kyle Parker, LSU commitment. Jaden Greathouse, of course, the Austin Westlake kid, Notre Dame commitment. I guess if there's one of those three, Cole, if I was going to make a prediction that one was going to flip, it'd probably be Kyle Parker if Texas made a really strong last push. I don't know, man. He seems pretty happy with his LSU commitment. I saw they did an in-home visit with him. I think maybe yesterday or was sometime.
Yeah, I think it was last night.
Yeah, so I'm not predicting any of those three in the class, but they're guys that we're keeping an eye on, right?
Yeah, for sure. I tend to agree. You know, they did have Lane on campus pretty recently. He's committed to USC, and great house. You know, he's the local kid, but it seems like ever since he made that commitment, he's been pretty happy with Notre Dame. I believe he even saw them play in Las Vegas on his own dime, so seems pretty locked in there. Yeah, Kyle Parker, him and Coach Marion are pretty tight. Maybe there's something there. I'm not expecting it, but if they were to flip another guy in addition to DeAndre Moore, that's probably the best bet.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen with Kyle Parker, but he always liked Texas quite a bit before he ended up committing to LSU. Partly, I think if Texas had pushed early on, they could have gotten his commitment. So that's why I would probably pick him out of those three. But I think he probably winds up sticking with LSU. Really nothing to report on it on offensive line in terms of the 5 commitments. There's really nobody new that's it's an additional target. So those guys all seem pretty well set in stone. I know Andre Kojo visited TCU, but he tells me, and there's nothing to worry about. I've checked with other sources. They say, hey, Texas isn't worried and shouldn't be worried. So I think it's pretty much status quo at offensive line for the next 2 weeks, don't you?
Yeah, not a lot of drama there, which same with Arch is pretty nice for us.
Yeah. It's the offensive line recruiting for 2 years in a row has been pretty incredible. Okay, let's go to tight end. Texas has 2 commitments, and then they're still tracking and targeting Deuce Robinson, the nation's #1 tight end out of Arizona. You've got schools like Georgia in the mix, Southern Cal, obviously Texas. Texas did host him on an official visit. Deuce doesn't say much, man, so it's hard to get a real clear read. I talked to some of the players that were around him and the recruits that were around him. They're like, yeah, man, we know he had a good time, but he doesn't say much to tip his hand. So there's a lot of, initially it was all USC with Deuce Robinson. Lately, though, there's been kind of after he took that Georgia visit, some people that I've talked to think maybe Georgia is a team to beat. I think Texas is hanging around there, but I haven't heard anything that makes me think Texas is in the lead. So I'm probably going Deuce Robinson out of this Texas class.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of factors, like you said. He did take that official visit. I guess that was in November. His parents actually visited for the Alabama game, if I remember correctly.
He was supposed to come, and then his game got pushed to Saturday. He couldn't come. His parents ended up just coming in anyways.
Yeah, so that was pretty interesting. But yeah, Texas already has 2 commits at tight end. He's probably not too worried about that. He's a 5-star. Probably has a lot of confidence in himself. It's still a factor to consider. And like you said, Georgia's made a big move. USC's always been around. I'd probably say Texas is probably running 3rd there, and I wouldn't expect him in this class. But, wilder things have happened. He's tied with Arch Manning, so, we'll obviously continue to monitor that.
Yeah, the Arch Manning thing, he's been open about that. And
baseball as well.
Baseball, exactly. The one, Deuce is such a wild card. Deuce is a wild card. That's interesting. But he is a wild card because the baseball factor. Yeah. He's a legit big-time baseball prospect. So I know when he was in Austin, he did meet with the Texas baseball staff. And there was a feeling on that side that things went pretty well. Does that mean they feel like they're going to get him? Not necessarily, but it was a good visit. So if Texas is to get Deuce Robinson, and I'm not ruling it out, I'm not expecting it, obviously. I'm not predicting him in the class. But, again, man, he's kind of a wild card. Like, if there's a guy that's going to pull a surprise, maybe it's Deuce Robinson because the baseball aspect is such a big factor for him. And, obviously, Texas has a premier baseball program as well. Okay, Cole, let's flip over to defense, and we'll start at defensive line. It's still a big priority for Texas to land at least one interior defensive lineman. They've got a couple guys they're going to bring in. They got Sadir Mitchell committed at defensive tackle. They're going to bring in this week, actually, they're bringing in Justin Benton, who I just talked to last night, player out of Georgia who's committed to West Virginia. I talked to Justin for quite a bit last night, and I actually just put a report on Orange Bloods today. I'll have a little bit more in the war room on Thursday night. Like, he's still committed to West Virginia. He did visit Arkansas in November. He'll visit Texas this coming weekend with his parents and his sister. He's an interesting kid, man. He's like his mom's a school teacher. Academics are really important to him. He said he wants to study either pre-med or business. When I hear that, and I hear Texas, Arkansas, and West Virginia, all due respect to Arkansas and West Virginia, I mean, Texas is on another plane, especially with their business school. So I've gone on record for a few weeks now as saying, hey, I think he's going to be part of this class. I can't put a future cast in because he's committed to West Virginia. The rival software doesn't allow us to do that. But if I could, my pick would be for Texas. I think Justin Benton is going to be part of this Texas class.
Yeah, for sure. Just based on your reporting and even just from the outside looking in, it seems to be that way. West Virginia, Neil Brown, he's kind of on the hot seat up there. They just got a new AD. Seems to be a lot of turmoil. So it seems to be, from my perspective, it's going to be Texas or Arkansas. He's just kind of, deciding where he's going to flip. That's kind of what the perspective, or at least my opinion, on the situation is. And like you said, you've talked to him. He's visiting Texas this weekend. Things are lining up for the Longhorns. They need another defensive lineman in this class, and he seems to be the guy. Really talented guy with SEC offers from the Southeast. So, Bo Davis, he seems to be the guy to close the deal there.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be one of these deals where he visits and then immediately commits. I think he's going to take some time, maybe take it all the way to 2 weeks from today to the early signing period. But yeah, Texas has a lot to sell and a lot to offer there, and I think the Longhorns are going to end up winning out. Trey Pierce is a defensive tackle out of Chicago, Cole, that he'll be in next weekend, the big recruiting weekend. Previously committed to Wisconsin. He opened up his recruitment a couple weeks ago. I know Michigan's heavily involved there. A lot of people think Michigan may be the team to beat. Texas is getting him on campus for a visit. That's one we'll be watching closely, but I like Texas's chances much better with Justin Benton, I think I do, than Trey Pierce. And another guy I actually talked to last night is Cameron Brandt, who is a recent offer, I think it was last week. Texas offered him a Stanford commitment. Of course, David Shaw steps down. That kind of maybe opens things up. I talked to Cameron Brandt. He's a young man out of California. Talked to him last night. He's still kind of waiting to see what happens with Stanford. May visit Texas, may visit Michigan, he said, is the other school. So Trey Pierce.
Academics.
Yeah, exactly. 3 really good academic schools. I get the impression he's probably going to stick with Stanford. He kind of said, man, he's assuming that they're going to hire a good coach. And Stanford's one school, like they can go through a coaching change, and maybe it doesn't have a lot of effect on the recruits because they're going there.
Difficult to turn down.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not just going there for the football or the coach. They're going there largely for academics. So maybe Texas gets him on campus. That's not even decided yet. He said he's kind of waiting to see what happens with the Stanford situation. So I'm probably not predicting Trey Pierce, or Cameron Brandt in this class, but I am predicting Justin Benton. Now, let's go to linebacker. First off, Cole, we'll talk about the guys Texas has committed. Then we'll get to Anthony Hill, which everybody will want to hear about. They've got commitments from Leona Lafau, the linebacker out of Hawaii, Samaje Burrell out of North Crowley, and Darian Gillette out of Teague. Samaje is kind of the interesting one there. I don't think there's anything to be worried about with Darian Gillette. Leona Lafau told me was it last week? I think he said, he's locked in with Texas. The other schools have kind of backed off. He's going to enroll at Texas in January and, not really that interested in any other schools anymore. Samaje Burrell's a bit interesting. He is taking a Houston visit this weekend. He told me that last week. I hit him up this week because I know he was going to talk with, he and his family were going to talk with the Texas coaches last week. So I thought, okay, maybe they talked him out of that visit. I hit him up yesterday and he goes, I'm still taking that Houston visit, but I'm signing on the 21st. I'm locked in with Texas. So he's visiting Houston this weekend. He might visit Baylor if he can fit it in there. I'm taking Samaje at his word. I think Texas kind of did a good job of easing his concerns. So I am predicting him in this class. But, hey, listen, man, anytime a guy's taking official visits this late in the process, you got to be a little bit concerned if you're Texas, right?
Yeah, I mean, just like how it's a good sign Texas getting some of these D linemen on campus. Same applies on the opposite way, if your commits are visiting, especially this late in the process. Always definitely worth mentioning. Houston's kind of done a good job with some Texas targets and Texas commits. They obviously got Jordan Wilson earlier in the cycle. They've done a good job of keeping I know Samaji's from the Metroplex, but they've done a good job of keeping Houston area talent at home that could have gone to bigger schools. Matthew Golden last year, I believe Texas offered late in the process. So definitely worth at least keeping an eye on. He's a guy that's been committed for a while and telling you the right things, but, we'll see, maybe he gets high on that visit, comes out of there, I think really liking Houston, but if Texas gets him back on campus next week, I think everything should be fine there.
Well, you got the high of the Houston visit and possibly a Baylor visit. The other factor to watch here is Anthony Hill. If Texas gets Anthony Hill, does he look at that and say, okay, hey, maybe I need to go somewhere where there's not a 4 linebacker class coming in? It's weird. I talked to Samaji about that, and he's confident in his abilities. And he said, hey, man, I think I can come in and beat out any linebacker that's coming in. But he also said, hey, I don't want to come in to a situation where, okay, he's the 5-star guy, so he's going to be starting off, 1 foot ahead. Samaji was just like, I just want to know that I have a fair chance, because if I do, I feel like I can beat out any of these linebackers. So some moving parts here that make that one worth watching. Cole, I'm going to let you start off. Anthony Hill, kind of your thoughts on Anthony Hill and your prediction on Anthony Hill.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything, seen anything, or gotten any different feeling. I still think it's going to be Texas. We've talked about it before. It's so rare you see a player, especially of his caliber, decommit. It was relatively late in the process as well, decommit, and then, a month or two later, flip back to that same school he just backed off of. So I'm still going Texas. Every time I talked to him, even leading up to his A&M commitment, he spoke really high of Texas. In fact, one time I went to go interview him at school, he was wearing a Texas T-shirt and was kind of, talking all about Texas. Of course, that was back in the summer, I believe. So it was, a little bit a while ago. But, he was on campus for the TCU game. He very tight with a bunch of commits. Malik Muhammad told me that he's one of the guys that he's really honed in on recruiting, trying to get in this class. It seems like that's the case for, especially Arch Manning, Jonte Cook. All these guys want him in the class. He knows he's needed. I definitely give the edge to Texas for sure. I'm not saying it's a done deal. My future cast is on Texas. But yeah, it would be really, advantage. It would give Texas a big advantage if they're able to get him back on campus before signing day. Especially if he does not visit anywhere else. I think him staying at home on Thanksgiving weekend, not going to A&M for their win over LSU, not going to Alabama for the Iron Bowl can pay off pretty big, considering Texas did get him on campus in November. But yeah, so in summary, I'm definitely choosing Texas for that commitment. I give the Longhorns the edge there.
Yeah, Texas getting him on campus the last crack, as it stands right now, was big. Like you said, it's not often a guy decommits from a school and then goes back to that school. For that reason, I'm picking Texas. But I got to admit, dude, my confidence level isn't as high, certainly not as high as it was when he first decommitted. When he first decommitted, I'm like, okay, he's going to flip to Texas almost immediately. Well, that hasn't happened. He's going to maybe take this thing all the way to signing day. Texas is going in home this week. A&M is going in home this weekend. Jimbo Fisher will be there. Sark will be there next week. So, listen, man, you're not hosting A&M, their staff, and Jimbo Fisher if your mind is 100% made up. I just don't believe that. He's not the type that plays games. I don't think his dad would let him play those types of games. So I think it's still an open race to some degree. I'm picking Texas for Anthony Hill, but anybody who says, hey, this is a stone cold lock, I don't buy that. And I would have said probably 75% certainty maybe a month ago. I'm probably putting it at about 60-40 now in favor of Texas, maybe 65-35. So I still like Texas. I'm still predicting them in this class, but I don't think it's the stone cold lock that a lot of people thought it was and maybe still think it is, maybe a little overly optimistic. Cole, I just realized, I don't know how I did it, but we skipped over defensive linemen / edge players. So Dylan Spencer, Billy Walton, we'll put Colton Vosick in that group. 3 commitments. I don't think there's anything to be worried, certainly not with Vosick and Walton. There was a rumor that popped up about Dylan Spencer a few weeks ago, maybe decommitting, right? And, of course, we hear those rumors, and it sucks. We have to immediately check on it. So I checked with his coach and with Dylan, and immediate response from the coach is like, oh, that's not true. Dylan says, no, that's not true. I've been trying to get in touch with Dylan lately, but his phone's not taking calls. I'm like, what's over that? But, I'm taking him and his coach for sure at their word. So I don't think there's anything to be worried about there. Now, this is where it's interesting. Texas is still clearly looking for another edge player linebacker edge player. They got the Tausili Akana kid from Utah is still on the radar there. Rylan Kennedy is the brand new offer that he'll be on campus next weekend for an official visit. Jelani McDonald is another guy that they offered that will be a former Oklahoma State commitment that will be on campus in next weekend. Akana, I can't wrap my head around him at Texas because, Oklahoma's been a major player there for a long time. There's just something about it just has never clicked with him in Texas in my mind. Now, when I talked to Tausili, he speaks very highly of Texas. He loved his visit. I remember the Texas, people, sources at Texas, there was some confidence there. They just said, hey, they feel like they're very much in the race. But the fact that the staff has recently offered a guy like Rylan Kennedy, a guy like Jelani McDonald, who's more of a linebacker, Jelani is, but they can't take all these guys. And the fact that they offered Rylan Kennedy makes me think that they're not feeling very confident on Tausili Akana. Rylan Kennedy, I thought he was going to wind up at Texas, but A&M just offered him, I think, on Monday of this week. Might that throw a wrench into everything? I don't know, man. I guess if I'm predicting on Rylan Kennedy, I'm predicting him in this class. Jelani McDonald, I'm predicting a couple weeks ago, I kind of had him in this class. I think he might wind up at TCU, Cole, because they can only take so many, right? I mean, Texas can't take all these guys. So I don't know. Are you with me or against me on those predictions? Because I don't feel great about any of them, to be honest.
Yeah, my feeling on Kennedy is all based on you because you're the one that have talked to him. You've gotten to know his coach as well. A&M offering, definitely something to watch. He's kind of blown up as well. Auburn's offered. A lot of the SEC's offered in addition to A&M in Texas. So he's got plenty of options there. Getting on campus for an OV is definitely pretty crucial there. Yes, I agree with you about Jelani. It seemed like he was almost a lock, especially going into that TCU game. He didn't commit coming out of that weekend. He then took another visit to TCU. Obviously, they got the momentum going, in the playoffs and all of that. He's a former Oklahoma State commit. He's a guy I can definitely see at TCU. But if Texas misses out on Kennedy, he could easily be in this class as well. But I'll lean with you, saying Kennedy is in and the other two are out. So Akana, he does have some Texas ties. I believe his sister does play volleyball at Texas. He's close with Leona Lafau, the linebacker commit. So that's another guy. You talk about Deuce Robinson maybe being wild card. Maybe Akana wakes up on signing day and say, hey, I'm familiar with Texas and people there. But yeah, as of right now, I think Kennedy probably has the best shot of those three being in this class.
Akana's a guy, I'm looking at, he visited A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, and I think he still has a fifth. I don't think he took a fifth official visit. But if he just said, hey, I'm going to commit to LSU, I don't think it'd shock anybody. If he said, I'm going to stay home and play for Utah, I mean, he's such he doesn't really say much to anybody. He's a hard kid to get a read on. But you're right. I guess I'd probably favor Oklahoma just because they had the most buzz early on. But he's a tough one to predict. You mentioned Jelani McDonald. I mean, Texas offers him. He visits, and a couple of days later, he decommits from Oklahoma State. So, that's pretty telling. You're like, okay, wait a second. You just visited and then you decommitted. That means you're probably going to flip. Well, he's stuck to his guns, man. He's told me all along, like, now I want to take my visits and and I'm pretty open. Texas, TCU, even Oklahoma State still in the picture. So he's a guy that we had on a commit watch when he visited for that TCU game. I mean, there were people close to the situation that thought he might commit to Texas, but he had told me, nope, not happening. I was watching it anyways, and he stuck true to his word. So, we'll see what happens there. All right, cool. Let's move to secondary. Texas would love to add to their secondary class. They don't have a huge number at secondary. They've got Derek Williams, the safety out of Louisiana, and Malik Muhammad, the corner out of South Oak Cliff. So it's only a two-man class right now. They did just offer a guy in the portal this week. So clearly they're looking to add bodies in the secondary. Malik Muhammad seems like he's fully locked in at this point, right? He kind of gave Texas fans some nervous moments, but I think he's fully locked in. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, every time I talk to him, especially in this playoff run, he's always wearing Texas sleeves, Texas gloves, and then even just talking to him, he's very locked in. Like I mentioned, he's recruiting Anthony Hill. He's close with the staff and all the other commits. And I think a lot of it has to do with
real quick, he's recruiting Justin Benton, the kid out of the defensive tackle out of Georgia. I didn't even know this, but they were at IMG together for a minute out in Florida, and they were like in the dorm room next door to each other. Okay. So Justin Benton's like, oh,
that's
man,
pretty interesting.
Yeah, so he's recruiting. I was like, oh, what a small world there. But yeah,
sure. No, I didn't know that. That's pretty. I saw you. I was going to read your story after this. I saw you mention Benton had an interesting UT tie. So no, that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I think he's pretty locked in with this, very locked in with this class. Him and Baxter were two of the guys a lot of people were worried about. And I do think, Salk making another deep run in the playoffs has played a big role in, Texas keeping that locked down. He has a game every Friday and Saturday. The state championships next week, assuming they're able to advance this weekend. So not really any time to make a weekend visit. You told me you didn't really want to make a midweek visit either. So, yeah, I think Texas is going to hold on to their DB. And you mentioned they only have 2 commitments. My dogs are barking in the background. Sorry about that. But you mentioned they only have 2 commitments. Both of those are in the top 49, top 50. I think Garrett Williams is number 49 overall. Muhammad's 34. So 2 guys kind of on the edge of 5-star status. So if you're going to have 2 guys, those are pretty two big-time players to have committed.
Derek Williams is interesting. He told Nick Harris from Rivals.com that he may not sign in December. He may wait till February so he can take some of these other visits. His team just got bounced from the playoffs last week. So need to follow up with him and his coach, see if he's going anywhere maybe this weekend. Maybe does he come to Austin next weekend on the 17th? Those are things we need to probably check on probably today. But is he still going to visit Alabama? Is he still going to visit Texas A&M and LSU and Miami? And maybe wait till February to sign. So Derek Williams feels like a story we need to watch very closely. And then Cole, 2 uncommitted guys. We'll talk about Javian Toviano and then Tyler Scott, the cornerback, who will visit officially next weekend. Tyler Scott will. I'm not predicting Toviano in this class. I mean, again, we keep talking about wild cards. Well, Javian Toviano is a wild card, but he hasn't visited the Texas campus, I think, since early in the summer, I believe it was the last time he was on campus. He's visited LSU a couple times. But again, man, hey, would it shock you if Javian Toviano showed up next weekend for their big visit weekend?
I think we mentioned Deuce and Akana. I think Toviano is probably the biggest wild card in the entire really whole cycle. Nobody really has a good read on him. Anybody I talk to,
like he wants to pull a surprise, doesn't it?
Yeah. It seems like everybody assumes it's going to be LSU just following the visits and all of that kind of stuff. But nobody actually knows. He won't tip his hand. Every time somebody talks to him, he says the right things. The one thing, I think I would feel more confident. I mean, I still think LSU will have the edge either way, but I would feel a little more confident about Texas being the surprise pick if he did make it in for that TCU game. He was supposed to be in Austin. He tweeted about it. If he had made that in, I think I would have a lot higher percentage of a chance of Texas pulling the upset on signing day. But yeah, there's always a chance he does show up next weekend, and he's the guy that, all the signs point to LSU. He was wearing he was at the A&M Arkansas game, AT&T Stadium early in the year, wearing an LSU hat. He's been LSU multiple times. So it seems like it's gonna be LSU, but he hasn't committed, and like you said, he seems to be the guy that would want to make a surprise like that. So
I got to backtrack. He's deciding on the 15th, so that he'll be decided before the Texas big visit weekend. So that kind of changes the narrative there. Now that I kind of thought that through, but again, Toviano, man, like he could show like tomorrow he'll tweet something like on my way to Austin, and you're like, oh crap. Yeah. So he's a smart enough kid that he knows how to manipulate people and play the game a little bit. And I think he wants to pull a surprise. I'm still predicting LSU. I'm not predicting him in the Texas class, but
that's a safe bet. But I don't think anybody knows. Sometimes we can get some stuff off the record, but he's a guy that won't tip his hand at all. But so we'll have to follow the visits for sure. And it seems like LSU would be the pick, but again, he's the biggest wild card in the class.
Yeah, and I don't think college coaches know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Like, I'll just whenever he commits, wherever it is, I'll be in suspense, probably like everybody else. He's not going to tell anybody before he decides. Tyler Scott's a cornerback out of Georgia. stock is really blown up this fall. He will visit Texas next week, but you got schools like Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia involved there. Or LSU, excuse me. I just don't know that Texas can win out there. I don't know that they can't, but I just know the competition's pretty tough with some schools in his region. So I'm probably predicting him out of this class, which maybe that's why you saw Texas extend an offer in the portal already at the cornerback position. As far as we know, it's their only formal offer that's been issued to portal players this week, as far as guys announcing those offers. So we know they're going to target some wide receivers, some linebackers, some defensive linemen. There's only been one announced offer in the portal, I believe, and that was to a cornerback who told Orange Bloods, we got that on the site, that good chance he'll visit Texas. He wanted to go home and talk with his family this week and maybe visit Texas. But long story short, Tyler Scott, he'll visit Texas next weekend, so they've got a shot, but I'm predicting him out of this class.
You mentioned he's really blown up. He went from, having I think probably a couple of G5 offers, nothing really going on. Now he's Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan. Really, all the powerhouses are across the country have offered him. So it'll be interesting if he does make it in for that official visit. And if he does, anything can happen, especially if Arch, Jonte, and all those guys are around him.
Yeah, now Cole, I hear my dog barking.
You must have heard my dog.
Yeah, maybe so. This is one of those CruitCasts. All right, man. Well, thankfully, we're at a stopping point here. So that's kind of the big picture. Like I said, we got 2 weeks left of all this. There's going to be some movement and some moving parts, and we'll be tracking it all on orangebloods.com. So everybody go to orangebloods.com. Keep up to date there. Subscribe to our channel. Like this video, please. And, of course, get you some prime shrimp, including that new flavor we talked about at the top of the CruitCast, the New Orleans-style barbecue, which I am hungry. It's almost lunchtime. That sounds freaking amazing. So I can get my hands on some of that New Orleans-style barbecue. Anytime I hear butter, pepper, citrus, even Worcestershire, I love Worcestershire. Dude, all those things, I love them all. So, put them all
Speaking your language.
Oh my goodness, yeah, dude! Seriously, my mouth is watering talking about them. So, love prime shrimp. I can't wait to try their new flavor. So, hey, thanks everybody. Cole, this is one of our longer videos. You and I usually aren't this long-winded, but we're closing in on 40 minutes here. So, thank you everybody for giving us about 40 minutes of your time. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Cole will be back probably early next week, or maybe before if the situation warrants it. But thank you, Cole, for your time. I'm Jason Sukamel. That's Cole Patterson. Thanks, Blake Skaggs, behind the scenes for producing this. Maybe Blake can edit out these dog barks somehow. I don't know if that's possible or not. But thank you, Blake Skaggs, for all your hard work. Everybody have a great rest of your week. We will talk to you soon. Take care.